And now, coming to you live from Huntsville Attic Studios, it's Pop Culture Philosophers. And here are your hosts, Rockin, Robbie, Billups, and John Hammertime Holshoe.
Hey everybody, it's the Pop Culture Philosophers. Coming to you always from the Huntsville Attic, actually a brand new Huntsville Attic. Really excited. It's our first show of season 2. We're very excited to do Star Trek. It's been, 40 years? 50 years. 50 years since the original Star Trek. So we're excited. We got a lot of Star Trek fans here. I'm a Star Trek fan, but not as much so as some of the people on the show, which I'll introduce you in a second. I'm John Hammertime Holshoe. With me always is the Spock to my Captain Kirk, Rockin' Robbie Billups.
Oh, hey everybody. It is Rockin' Robbie Billups. Excited to be here and talk about Star Trek. And normally I would not like to be the anything to your anything, but I am totally cool with being Spock over
I love
Kirk.
you too.
Anyway, super excited to be here. Tonight we have some great Trekkers, because I think Trekkie is an offensive term. Justin Goldsmith, everybody, is with us tonight.
Hey.
How are you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Live long and prosper and all that stuff, but that comes later. Also, we got Jelani Bullard.
What's up? I do not want to be called a Trekkie.
I do not
term.
like
Terrible
Trekkie
term.
at all.
I am a Trekker.
I prefer Trekker.
It's
but
like geek and nerd. It's the same thing.
it's not the same
Not
thing.
really. Not at all.
A Trekker is someone who enjoys and watches Star Trek, and a Trekkie is someone who
Dresses
dresses up, like
and
just
does
sitting
sex
at
play or
home,
weird
like,
things.
just doing all kinds
Oh,
of weird
okay.
stuff.
Yeah,
All
super
kinds of
weird
weird
stuff.
stuff. Anyway,
Different.
who knows? Who knows?
But we embrace those people anyway. If you love it from a scale of 1 to 10, we love it. We love Star Trek. I'm excited for the show. I'm excited for just talk about it, man. It's just such a big show. We've got all the shows, we got all the movies, and it's not just a show. It is a culture.
It's a phenomenon.
I mean, Star Trek is huge.
Gorgeous.
It is very huge.
So let's kick it off, man. Let's just start the show. I want to know, why do you love Star Trek? Why do you love Star Trek? I'm gonna start with? The person that I know is the biggest Star Trek fan around. That's Timothy Dalton. Oh wait, no, Timothy Dalton couldn't make it tonight. But
Again,
Justin Goldsmith, you are the biggest Star Trek fan I know.
Is that right?
Why do you love Star Trek?
Because it gives you something to aspire to. That's why it was created. You know, it's no matter what's going on in your everyday life, you can go pull up any episode of Star Trek, and there's something going on there that just makes you feel good because things are gonna be better.
Wow, is your life that sad?
It was before I started watching Star Trek.
Well, you're doing very well, so it must be paying off, man.
Indeed.
Jelani, why do you love Star Trek?
It's a society I can deal with. Gene Roddenberry created this society of there's no conflict. There's no.
Well, I've
no
seen some
real-
conflict. Have you not
there's
seen the same
conflict.
episodes
There's
I
conflict
have?
with aliens, but with humanity as a whole, there's no real conflict. It's a utopia, and all we want to do is discover. And I love that aspect of Star Trek.
Yeah.
I've always loved that. As a child, I looked at it and I was like, we can look at the stars, and we can always aspire to be the people that are on Star Trek.
Yeah, we can unite as the human
love
race.
it.
Yeah,
I love it.
exactly.
Yeah.
I like that.
Love it.
Good message.
Together.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Robbie, why do you love Star Trek? I know you're a big Star Trek fan. I think you got me more into Star Trek than anybody else.
well, I am a huge Star Trek fan. I grew up a huge Star Trek fan, loving it. The series, the movies, all that stuff. I think that because it's basically what Justin and Jelani have already said. It's this bold vision of what we could do in the future. So it's a vision. It's this wonderful vision of the future. And a lot of the times in fiction, you get this very dystopian future, this very negative. Everybody thinks like, look, we're just ruining everything. We're wrecking the world. Things are going to be terrible. Zombies, asteroids, just all this terrible stuff that we're doing to society, or that society and nature could do to us. And Star Trek flipped that, and it's a very positive look. And it's like, seriously, if you guys could just get your shit together, you can have
Yeah.
Star Trek.
It's simple.
Exactly.
It's simple.
That's why I love it, man. What about you, John?
I really don't like Star. No, I do like the show. It was something that as a child, I'm like, there's so much drama. Where's all the action?
Yeah.
And there is some action. Don't get me wrong. But as I grew older, I'm like, this is amazing. I mean, I do like the writing. I like the concept. Everything. I love everything about it. There's nothing I don't like. I do like this utopian, like, yeah, we all gathered together to explore the great beyond. I think that's a great concept. Great beyond. It sounds like they're all dead. Oh, they go to heaven. Not that Spock's brother. Never mind. But I do like the whole concept. Really, I watch it for the green women. No, I'm kidding. That's
are
a Star Trek
gorgeously green.
joke. Everything you guys said, I love the show.
A little bit on the history of Star Trek. First of all, as Jelani said, created by Gene Roddenberry, the great late Gene Roddenberry. It debuted in September of 1966. And Gene Roddenberry, it was inspired by Westerns, especially Wagon Train. In fact, the original series was originally described as Wagon Train to the Stars. So he was like, this is like a Western. They're exploring the frontier, the final frontier. And that's where that comes from. So he was also inspired by Horatio Hornblower novels and Gulliver's Travels, of course. He wanted each episode to act on two levels. He wanted it to be a suspenseful adventure and a morality tale. And that's something that's definitely prevalent in all Star Trek episodes.
Yeah.
Is the moral dilemmas that they have to face. The show only ran for the 3 seasons. Roddenberry didn't really have any input in season 3. Reruns, though, began in 1969. The show started picking up steam, got popular, and in 1975 they started work on Star Trek Phase 2, where they're going to bring it back to TV. They did the animated series just before that in 73 and 74. And in 75, they were working on Phase 2, but then because of things like Close Encounters and Star Wars, they decided to make the motion picture. So they did Star Trek, the motion picture. There was also, of course, 4 spin-off television series, soon to be 5. And it had 6 feature films for the original cast, 4 for Next Generation, and then 3, of course, from the reboot. Roddenberry's role was changed after Star Trek, the motion picture. He went from producer to creative consultant, with very, very little input on the films, and he was very much involved in the creation of The Next Generation, but he did die in October 1991, and it gave the franchise was then basically given under the control of Rick Berman, who we know as Star Trek guys. And, they did the reboot in 2009, and J.J. Abrams, and that's the Kelvin timeline, and they relaunched it, and a whole lot of people got into it. And now there's a new Star Trek show debuting in January of 2017.
Discovery.
On CBS All Access, Discovery. And it's going to be set 10 years before the original series. But that's a little bit about the brief history of Star Trek. Mostly, of course, a television show.
So there's a new television show coming out. I think we're all excited for Discovery, to discover the new show. I'll just escort myself out. But I was wondering, what were your guys' favorite shows thus far? Because there's quite a diverse, it's not just the Enterprise. There's, Deep Space Nine and Voyager, et cetera. So I want to know your favorite shows. I'm actually going to start with, this time I'm going to start with Jelani. What is your favorite?
My
favorite? It doesn't have to be the absolute favorite, like maybe your favorite
My
two.
absolute favorite is the Star Trek, the original series.
The original, okay, old school.
The old, it has to be old school. You got Kirk, Spock, you got McCoy, you got Scotty, you got Uhura. It's a Star Trek. It's where it starts. It's where I started, actually. I enjoyed being a part of it because it was on Fox 54, my favorite channel. And they did it in syndication. And that's the first time I really got exposed to Star Trek. And that's the first time I ever really enjoyed it. Now, after that, of course, is the Next Generation. But when it started for me was the original series.
What about you, Robbie? I'm going to jump to you. Robbie, what's your favorite of all the Star Trek shows?
Well, I have memories very similar to like what Jelani shares because, Fox played a Star Trek series pretty much every night at 9, pretty much. And it was super fun. My favorite series is Deep Space Nine.
Good choice.
I do love TNG, Next Generation, but DS9 is my favorite. I thought that it was a little bit more complex in its story. The characters were a whole lot more richer. It wasn't a lot of Star Trek episodes are just kind of go along the same formula. And DS9 got to break out of that a little bit.
Because they're on a space station.
Yeah, they're on a space station instead of a starship. Yeah. They're not trying to explore and discover. They're trying to broker peace, with the Bajoran people who had just been, completely dominated by the Cardassians for years. And so they're coming out of that
Kardashians.
Kim Kardashian.
That's Kardashians with a C.
Yeah, it was DS9 was just cool, and
extra necks.
It definitely felt more like a Western, like Roddenberry's vision. But I really like DS9 a lot.
Goldsmith, what's your favorite series? But if you had to pick one.
I mean, Deep Space Nine definitely is the original series, of course, it seems like everybody started watching the original series when you're a kid because, it's all colorful and it's got such a different feel to it than all the other shows that it's just when you're a kid and you see all these colors and space and all the cool stuff they're doing, it's really cool to get into. And then when I was a kid, I remember thinking Next Generation, it's not the original Enterprise, it's not the real Enterprise, so it's not real Star Trek.
Kirk.
And then Voyager, that's not the Enterprise, whatever. And Deep Space, no, that's
They
not
got
even a
lost.
ship. And I progressed from original series to TNG, and then Voyager, and then I actually watched Enterprise next. And Enterprise was my favorite of all of them before I saw Deep Space Nine. So Deep
You
Space
liked
Nine,
Enterprise better than...
Did you just say Enterprise?
yeah, and you want to know why?
I'll be honest, I'm not a huge Enterprise fan.
Okay, you're going to have to talk to me about this one.
This was, and let me clarify that Deep Space Nine is my favorite, but I'm going to use my time to defend Enterprise.
Okay. Go for it. Go for it.
The reason why it was my favorite before Deep Space Nine is because I watched all of the other Star Trek stuff, all the movies and the TNG and TOS, and I was so interested in the universe as a whole that seeing it from the literally from the beginning, like from the first Warp 5 starship and Captain Archer literally going off and meeting all the mainstay races of the Federation for the first time. So interesting. And then at the end of the series, you see them actually signing the Federation Charter. It's just, it's really cool to go back and see all that.
I guess it is cool to see that. I don't know, man.
It's a lot to get to that, though.
Yeah, I don't.
It's
Enterprise
a lot.
is rough for
To
me.
each their own.
But
Is that-
DS9, absolutely. man.
DS9 is great.
Now, is that with Scott Bakula or was it Voyager?
That's
Which
Scott
one's
Bakula.
Scott
Scott
Bakula.
Bakula was
Enterprise.
Yeah, I do like Scott Bakula.
What would
I
be
like
your
him in Quantum Leap.
What would be your favorite TV series, John? of
I would
Star Trek?
say the original series.
Okay.
I've enjoyed that the most, and part of it has to do with that. That's their version of the future, and sort of like, I don't know, there was something magical about that. Like that's what they thought the future was going to be, like their version of the flat screen and everything. I really like it. I love Captain Kirk and Spock and Sulu and Scotty. I mean, I just love the original cast. Chekhov. There's so many great people on the show. McCoy. I fucking love McCoy. And it's a great show. I enjoy the show. I think close second would be The Next Generation, which I really like. Picard. Was it Riker? Is he the
Riker's
first?
yeah.
too.
Data. So I do enjoy that. I just forgot, like, I went back and started rewatching it recently, and I'm sure there's episodes I've missed because I was watching like reruns. But the first episode was like the thing, the God thing that puts the mesh wall and they have to go to
The
trial
man
or whatever.
trap.
And that's the first episode. I mean, that's a Gene Roddenberry. That's the difference between Gene Roddenberry and other people is you would expect a very much basic, like this is the introduction to the crew and this is a basic space tale. Instead, you got something that's just like far off and not what you expect. I mean, there's a difference in Star Trek that separates Star Trek from any other sci-fi, I think.
We talked about, what series we liked. So let's get a little bit more, let's narrow our focus a little bit. What are some of your favorite episodes of Star Trek? And Justin, I know you're going to have a lot to say, and so am I. So let's start with Jelani.
Okay.
Favorite
Oh.
episodes?
Really? Okay. The Doomsday episode. It's the Doomsday Machine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I just
the
watched that
original
the other
series.
day.
Like, I watched that when I was a kid, and it freaked me out because, first of all, I've never seen two. And it's simple. It's very simple. I've never seen two ships that look like the Enterprise, and it was the Enterprise, and I forgot the other ship that was with it, but it was I forgot the name.
Schmenterprise.
I forget the name of it.
But they were both Constitution class warship.
I think it was the Constitution.
It was a Constitution class.
I think it was the USS
ship.
Constitution was the other
well,
one,
not
maybe.
it wasn't called the Constitution. It was called something else. But either way, I've never seen two Enterprise like ships.
Yeah, and in the original
ship.
series, they say there are only 12 in the fleet.
Right.
So that's cool to see.
And the whole part is there's this giant cone, and this giant cone is basically killing everything that gets in front of it. And they come upon the Constitution class ship, and it's like Commodore Decker. This guy is like freaked out because his entire crew was killed. He beamed them down to a planet, and they were all killed by this cone-shaped doomsday device. They have no clue what happened. And he's the only survivor, trapped on the ship, stranded in space. They find him. He's like, oh my God, we need to kill this thing because it's killed everything. And it's my favorite episode because, well, first of all, there are 2 Enterprise type ships. It freaked me out because I didn't know there were 2 ships like it as a little kid. But then on top of it, it was the fear. It was just the straight fear and the uncertainty of the episode because I didn't know who was going to survive. I had no idea. And I love how Star Trek made a show that was like this. It's impressed me very much.
That's a real good pick, and that's obviously original series right there. John, speaking of the original series, OG Hammertime Holshoe.
I'm going to go with, by the way, that was the USS Constellation.
Constellation.
Yeah.
Well done.
The 2, I'm going to, because my 2 favorite series were the original and TNG. So for TNG, I'm going to go Best of Both Worlds.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, that's with the Borg, and then Picard gets
Fantastic.
kidnapped. And it's just a great episode. If you're not a fan of TNG or not a fan of the Borg, you're not going to like it. But it's a great, fantastic episode. I'd say probably the best TNG episode. And then for the original series, I'm going to go with City on the Edge of Forever.
Great episode.
Which we're like, this is the episode you got to see if you watch any episode. And I'm like, okay, I'll watch it. And I'm like, oh, I've seen this episode. I've actually seen this episode before. I just didn't know that was the title of it.
Yeah, written by Harlan Ellison.
Yeah, because of that dilemma. You know what I'm saying? Do you let somebody die for the great if it's for the greater good? I mean, that's a hard thing to do.
That's like one of the classic. That's like one of the classic sci-fi stories from any show.
Joe Collins gotta die.
Yeah, the time travel in the you Back to the Future. We all deal with that. All time travel, not us personally, except for the time Goldsmith and I went back to time. But yeah, there's that for the greater good side, and it was awesome to see them. That was the first episode I recall seeing them in like street clothes on TV. There might be other episodes before that where you see them in regular clothes, but on TV that was the first episode I saw where Spock and Kirk are just like regular.
Why is Kirk wearing plaid?
Yeah,
right. Well, because Joan Collins gave him those clothes.
Let's get the hell out of here. Justin, what are some of your favorite episodes of Star Trek?
Oh man, like half my notes are about episodes. The original series, most of the episodes of the original series are classic, so I'm just going to skip on past that. TNG, you got Inner Light. Beautiful story. Picard learns how to play the flute.
Oh, yeah, he lives that whole life.
Yeah, he lives a whole life in like 2 hours or something like that in his mind.
I forgot about that.
Relics. There's this episode where they come across a ship and Scotty is stuck in the transporter buffer, and there's this really cool interaction with Scotty and LaForge. Chain of Command. Fantastic episode. There are 4 lights.
Yeah, that is a great one.
Picard gets taken prisoner by the Romulans. Deep Space Nine has some of the best story in Star Trek, period.
Yeah.
There's an episode called In the Pale Moonlight, and it's about how it's during the Dominion War, and Sisko is trying, he thinks that the only way that they're going to win this war against the Dominion is by bringing the Romulans into the war. So he comes up with this plan. And the whole show, the whole episode is done, and he's narrating it, and it's just so good. Like he's compromising his principles, and like it's a log entry. The whole episode's a log entry, and then it's so good. Far Beyond the Stars, another good episode, and it's another one that's
these have some
in his
fantastic
head.
titles, by the way.
Yeah,
Just gonna say.
Yeah,
I'm impressed, Goldsmith. I'm very impressed, by the way.
dude. Far Beyond the Stars is like Sisko's in a coma, and he's having basically a vision. And it's like set in the 30s or 40s, something like that, and really, really good episode. A lot of social commentary. Sacrifice of Angels when they're taking back Deep Space Nine. I'm not going to go any further. Robbie knows what I'm talking about. The Visitor, where Jake is old, and it's another sort of time travel episode.
That's a great one. Yeah, absolutely.
And then I'm going to do one from or two from Enterprise. Shuttle Pod 1. When Trip and Malcolm are stuck in a shuttle pod together, and like their engines are blown up or whatever, and they're sitting there basically about to freeze to death, and they hated each other in the series before, but it's really good. That's where they become friends for the rest of the series. And First Flight was a really good episode of Enterprise, and this is my last one.
Okay.
Archer was a test pilot for the engine that is in Enterprise, the first Warp 5 engine. And he's telling a story to Paul about how he and one of the other captains, who was also flying test runs, basically kept the warp program afloat because the Vulcans were trying to make us wait longer. It's a really good episode about the very beginning of us getting into space.
It's been a long road.
Oh,
I like
goodness.
that song.
Well, we'll get to theme
Yeah.
songs a little bit later on. Some of my favorites, a lot of them have already been discussed. Best of Both Worlds, for sure. City on the Edge of Forever, for sure.
Yeah.
So, real quick, Ship in a Bottle is one from Next Generation, the one with Moriarty. You know, coming, you know, the AI who realizes that he's an AI and takes over the ship is pretty dope. Trials and Tribulations and Little Green Men from DS9. I like both of those.
Or the Roswell crash.
Yeah, the Trials and Tribulations, of course, is the one where they put Cisco and all them back in that original Star Trek
so many
TOS
good
episode.
A well-done episode.
Yeah, man.
And Little Green Men is the one where Quark and company go back in time and become the 3 aliens from the Roswell incident.
Yeah.
I love that one. My all-time favorite, though, one more from TOS is Mirror Mirror.
Oh, yeah.
Mirror's
Yeah,
the first one.
that's a great one. But my absolute favorite is All Good Things, which is the last episode of Next Generation. I love that story so much. The Picard in 3 different times, and he
Trying
keeps
to
going
stop,
from the past, present, and future.
Yeah.
Dude, it's so good. I love it. I like seeing an idea of what may have happened to these people. You know, like seeing
And it's
the
a
possible
test
future.
for Q.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's a great
It's a
Q episode.
great
And I'm
Q
still
episode.
upset that they have never done a Q,
A Q
movie.
movie.
I
A
really,
Q movie.
I really thought Nemesis would be about that. That's just,
God,
that's just
this
me.
ruins it. Yeah.
All right, let's go to social media real quick. We asked everybody, what is your favorite Star Trek movie? Because later on we'll be listing our favorite Star Trek movies. James Donahoe says, torn between Wrath of Khan and Undiscovered Country. David Hatch says, for sheer Trekness, nothing beats The Wrath of Khan. For fun, he would say The Voyage Home. For Next Generation, First Contact. For the reboot, he says Star Trek Beyond. Richard Werder says, Khan. Actually, it's a picture of George Costanza screaming Khan, which is pretty dope. Manuel from Shamaro Cinema said, Voyage Home, love the fun and the humor. Paul Buford said, the 2009 reboot. And our good buddy Drew Matson said, First Contact, probably. So thank you guys for logging into Facebook and letting us know what your favorite Star Trek movies are. We will be talking about lots of cool stuff, including our favorite villains and our favorite captains, coming up right after this break on Pop Culture Philosophers, Star Trek. Hey everybody, Rockin' Robbie here. I want to talk to you real quick about the YouTube channel. You got to get onto YouTube and subscribe to Pop Culture Philosophers. We got a whole lot of brand new offerings coming up, like PCP Conversations and Robbie Reads, other cool things like that. Continuing classics such as Robbie Rants, Super Mythology, and of course PCP Movie Night, making its grand return. Plus top 5 lists you can only find on YouTube. So check us out at YouTube at popculturephilosophers.com. Hey everybody, welcome back to Pop Culture Philosophers. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. With me, of course, is Hammertime Holshoe,
Indeed.
Justin Goldsmith,
Hello.
and Jelani Bullard.
What up?
And we are talking about Star Trek. Star Trek. And to celebrate Star Trek, in fact, if you've been a fan of our podcast channels for the last few years, you'll be familiar with this concoction. In fact, the first podcast that Justin was ever on
Hell yeah.
was the Quarks and Corks episode, Rockin' with Rockin' Robbie. Check it out. It's actually on our YouTube channel right now. We made the deadly concoction, Romulan Ale, beloved by Bones McCoy.
For its
And-
medicinal properties.
Yes, and outlawed in the Federation for a reason. So we're taking a shot of this. Do not try this at home, everybody. In fact, actually do try it at home.
No, don't try it. It's
It's
terrible.
Good stuff.
Oh God.
It's legal for
I
reasons.
said Kapla. I should have said Jolan True. That's the
You're
Romulan
such
thing.
a fucking nerd.
Yeah.
True.
Oh God, that Romulan ale. It got me. It got me.
It should be illegal.
Oh.
I think it is.
So we're talking about our favorite episodes. We're talking about our favorite shows, series. Now we're going to talk about our favorite ships. There's some fantastic and almost, they've kind of went off on this when the original Enterprise was just introduced, there wasn't this traditional rocket. You know what I'm saying? They went in this different direction, and there's just some fantastic just designs of these ships. So I was wondering what your fantastic.
What your fantastic favorite ships are.
Yes, exactly. Fantastic favorite ships. I'm actually going to start with Mr. Goldsmith. What is your favorite ship and or ships from the Star Trek shows, all the shows?
There's something to love about literally everything that they've created. My favorite...
Okay, good enough.
though,
Moving on.
Period. My favorite, though, period, has got to be the USS Enterprise NCC 1701E.
I hate you.
The Sovereign class
I
from
love
the movie,
to
the first
hate you.
contact.
Yeah.
It is so
That's my shit.
elegant. The design on everything. It's so like, I would if my house could be designed like the interior of that ship. That's it.
I loved it. It had a fantastic looking bridge too.
Yeah,
It really did.
gorgeous.
Robbie, what's your favorite ship?
Well, I could say something like an Enterprise because the Enterprises are cool, of which my favorite is the E. I love the E because the D is cool, but the E is so streamlined.
Who doesn't
so
love the D?
thin, right? Yeah.
He is perfect.
E is cool.
Yeah.
I'm also a fan of DS9. It's not really a ship, but I do like the Defiant.
Oh, it's a ship.
Yeah, the Defiant is like
Yeah.
DS9 is not really a ship, but,
Yeah.
but the Defiant is. That's really good. But my all-time favorite Star Trek ship is the Borg Cube.
Yeah.
Oh,
I knew somebody was
going
gonna
to
pick
stole
it.
my answer.
You
It is-
did?
Did I really?
Yeah.
It's so cool. And then the green inside of it, and it's just the cubes are cool too. But the cube, and like when you first see it
It is
in
scary.
Star Trek,
Yeah.
in Best of Both Worlds,
Is
you
it
see
because you're a
Like,
Hellraiser fan and it stirs
maybe.
within you?
Yeah, absolutely, probably. One of the Hellraiser movies, I think, they're in a space
Yeah,
station.
there's a space
and,
one.
and it's But I go with the Borg cube.
The Borg cube is fantastic. What a
So-
good, what
so
a good
that's
answer.
so
That was
ominous.
actually my answer. You stole my answer.
Anything else? Is that just it?
Oh, actually, in the original Enterprise, there's something about the original. I mean, I think everybody
From the show or from the movies?
from the show.
Because the one from the movies, the 1701A,
the retrofit.
the retrofit, that is really commonly held by not even just Star Trek fans, but like people just talking about spaceships.
Yeah.
That's commonly held as the most beautifully
It is.
designed spacecraft of all time.
Yeah.
Just 'cause it's so pretty.
When I think of Star Trek, for some reason, it's that
perfect.
version that comes to mind
Yeah.
from the film. But my
Yeah.
favorite probably is the show because I like the first show so much.
Yeah.
So it's more of a bias there.
Yeah.
I'm
Jelani.
sorry. I have to go with Justin's answer. E is the best designed
Yeah.
for me. E is gorgeous from First Contact. Come on.
It's
You
got
Sovereign
E.
class?
E. Yeah, definitely like E.
It's got chrome, but not too much
The
chrome.
ship is beautiful.
It's got those chrome spinners.
I mean, I'm sure it has the D. It has the yacht, the captain's yacht.
Oh, the captain shot.
that
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it pulls out with the captain's yacht, and you're like, yeah, this is the ship I want. I'm sure it goes saucer class. I'm sure it does everything D does, but it's E, and E was just, it was a better ship. And if I had to fly in space and live on a space ship, it would be E.
So pretty.
Yeah,
I think
it is
most
worth
people,
it.
if they were going to
It's
live on the
worth my time
ground,
and
they'd
effort.
rather live in E. I mean, just because it's.
I love an E, man.
I mean, it's not my favorite, but it's an awesome ship.
I have E
Yeah.
in my house. I have a model of E in my house.
Okay.
Because I mean,
I'm talking about the drug. Like you
yeah,
have
it's gorgeous.
E.
It's worth my time and effort. Yeah.
All right, that was a good discussion. Everybody had some good answers there. We talked about the ships. Let's talk about the races, the creatures. What is your favorite alien race and or creature in all of Star Trek? John.
Probably the scariest one of them all, the Tribbles. The most
pretty scary.
intimidating. The most intimidating. I'd say the Tribbles if we're talking about just creatures in general. Otherwise, if we're talking about a race overall, I'm gonna go with the Borg.
Okay.
The Borg are really cool. Other than that, maybe the Vulcans because I do love.
That sounds.
I do
Swedish.
love Spock, even though he's like only half Vulcan, right? Is that he's half Vulcan,
Yes.
half like.
Half
I think he's
human.
Canadian.
Half human.
Human.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's
We
Canadian.
won't hold that against.
Where's
him.
Winona Ryder from?
Nice.
It's a movie joke.
But I was gonna go, if I'm gonna go with creatures in general. I mean, there's some cool ones they have on the show, especially the original show. But just the Tribbles. I just love the concept of the Tribbles.
Yeah, they're there and like they keep multiplying.
Yeah, they're terrible and they like just consume
Yeah. The
everything.
They
Klingons.
consume everything. You can't get rid of them. Speaking of which, Justin, What are your favorite Star Trek alien races and creatures?
You know, when we got the rundown for this, it just said favorite race from Star Trek, and I was gonna say humans because that's just so beautiful that we
Human.
could achieve this.
Hey, that's a good answer.
I think you're biased.
But
I was gonna say that, and you
but I
ruined
mean,
it. Justin.
as far as alien
Thank
races
you.
go, you got your Vulcans. I like the Andorians a lot. But
They
I
make
think,
nice brandy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think my favorite of the races.
Is the muddy chlorines?
What?
Did you say the muddy chlorines?
The muddy chlorines.
The most interesting race to me in Star Trek are the Cardassians.
Okay.
They have such
They're
a
slave masters.
they have a rich culture. Everything. Don't take this to a racial place.
They are.
They have such a rich culture. The architecture is beautiful. Deep Space Nine is gorgeous with those metal bars going around
And their
everything.
necks are so pretty.
The,
They have the prettiest
their
necks.
politics, everything about the Kardashian, their spies. As a race, they're just so deep and cool.
Plus, they got spoons on their forehead.
Spoonheads,
spoons.
you're going to take this to a racial place too?
Spoons.
They do. But all right, that's cool. I would go with, like John said, the Borg. I think the Borg are cool.
Yeah.
But I really, really, really am endeared to the Klingons, man. I love I love their sense of honor. I love their code, their blood wine, their food, and I love that Riker just loves that shit. It's
Riker's
just
all in it.
because there's that episode when he has to it's like a student exchange program basically, and he starts
wants to
learning to
trade
eat the
out,
food. Yeah. I love the Klingons.
And dude, if there's one thing that Star Trek has actually created, they came up, they influenced like cell phones and tablets and stuff like that. But if there's one thing that Star Trek has actually created, Klingon as a language has actually been developed into its own thing, and the whole copyright controversy with Axanar last year and this year, it's been decided in the courts that Klingon is not actually the language of Klingon is not actually owned by CBS Paramount. It's its own entity now.
That's nice.
Klingon is actually a language like French
You
or
can't
English.
hold language down.
Yeah.
Jelani, speaking of can't hold them down.
Sounds weird. My favorite race of all time. This is gonna sound weird. It's the blob that killed Tasha Yar in the Next Generation.
The Taron or the Tarian
tar
or whatever.
monster
Yeah, the
thing.
tar monster thing.
Only because I did not expect Tasha Yar to die.
Nobody did.
Spoiler
Oh,
alert,
yeah. I was
by the
gonna
way,
say, I
guys.
feel bad for people listening. Like,
Spoiler
I might
alert.
get into Star Trek. I'm
You're
listening
like,
to this show.
we're
Oh,
ruined.
shit.
That thing killed Tasha Yar, and I saw it for the first time. And I was like, a blob kills Tasha Yar?
And that movie, The Blob,
And,
it killed
like-
all kinds of shit.
Yeah, it killed all kinds of. And I was I was shocked. It bothered me, and that's my favorite race because I was like, it made no sense.
So we talked about our favorite race, and we kind of mentioned and touched on some villain races. Some bad guys. Let's specifically talk about your favorite villain. Either it could be a whole group or it could be an individual person. I have a feeling it's an individual person that may come up a lot. So let's talk about your favorite villain. I actually want to I'm going to start with Robbie.
Ooh.
Your favorite villain from the Star Trek, any of the shows or the films.
Well, let me give out some shout outs to almost made the top of the list. Mirror Universe Spock.
Okay.
That's dope.
Yeah.
The Founders and the Jim Hadar, the whole Dominion,
Okay.
all
The
that
Dominion.
shit. Yeah.
Dominion.
Lore.
Lore.
Yeah,
Yes.
Data's evil
Data's
twin brother.
twin.
But if there was one, the penultimate, my bad, the
penultimate.
ultimate villain is Q. I love
He's a god.
Q. I love that every season of TNG pretty much has at least one Q episode. They almost all have Q in the title. And he's even in DS9 and Voyager.
Yeah.
I love Q. John Delancey, I've heard he's a big asshole in person,
He's
but
got
I
social
don't-
anxiety.
I don't care
He
about
doesn't like
that.
people.
He is just such an amazing actor, especially in that role. I love Q. I love his smartassery, and I love that he's a rebel even amongst his own people. I love
You know, TNG, you could think of him as the main antagonist of that because
He is.
in
starts
the last episode, it basically comes out and says this whole series, this 7 years that you've been on television has been
is
a
a test.
Yes. And what's really crazy is I always wanted them to put him in a movie.
It should have made him in a movie.
Because what would have happened if Q really wanted to fuck them up?
Oh, it did.
Do you know what I mean?
It.
Absolutely.
It'd be over.
And just snap.
Jelani, your favorite villain or group of villains, villainess, whatever you want to
Got a
call it.
lot, man. But I love the Borg Queen, but I'm not going with the Borg Queen from First Contact. She is awesome.
Yeah.
And that's not who I'm going with. It's Quark from
Quark?
DS9. Yeah, Quark from DS9.
As a villain?
As a villain.
Ooh.
I would say Goldacott too, but no. Quark, because he's an anti-hero. He's not really there, but he's in behind the scenes. He's been evil the whole time. Like his entire goal is to make money.
Yeah.
And like he wants to make money no matter like if the Cardassians are in control of DS9 or if the Federation is in control of DS9. He wants to make money. And that's all he thinks about. And that's my favorite villain.
Speaking of greed, Goldsmith. Who are your favorite villains from the
What's that supposed to mean?
Star Trek shows or films? Or, well, hell, animated series or games?
I think the Borg come out as a really
They're good.
Oh, yeah, the Borg are freaking awesome.
they come out as the first like huge major threat to the galaxy
Yeah.
in the show, and then eventually you in Voyager you end up with species 8472, who the Borg are afraid of. They come from
Yeah, the
another
Borg are afraid of
dimension where space is fluid. But and then you even have the Dominion, who the Borg are actually afraid of and actively avoid. The Jem'Hadar are born in test tubes.
Yep.
But out of all the villains in Star Trek, it's already been mentioned once. Goldacott, the Cardassian, who's the main antagonist from Deep Space Nine. Great neck. Snake. The snake guy. Goldacott's storyline and his development as a character is one of the best things to come out of Star Trek, period. Because he changes so much, and for like the first 3 or 4 seasons of the show, you don't know, like, I mean, he was the head of the occupational forces when basically think of Cardassia as Germany and Bajor as Jews.
He's Hitler.
Yeah, he was pretty much Hitler, but
Hitler.
he kept saying like, I was trying to help them, and it would have been worse if I wasn't there.
Right.
And you kind of want to believe him because he seems like he's a nice guy.
He's a nice guy, but he's
No.
an ass.
No,
Yeah.
he's insane, and he just gets progressively crazier through the entire series.
I'm going to agree with Goldsmith on the Borg. I mean, that was originally, but I had changed my answer a little bit because I thought everybody was going to say Khan. Khan, like that was going to be the ultimate
Khan's
answer.
overrated.
No, Khan is
Yeah,
a great
I thought
villain,
everybody's
but
going to
he's
say
not
that. I got to
nice.
find something different. So what I really thought was great was the Gorn from the original series.
Oh, yeah.
Well done.
The Gorn, man.
Yeah. You're
Yeah.
not supposed to fight them.
You got to fight them. Yeah,
You're
yeah.
not
They
supposed
pitted
to
him
fight
against the
them.
Gorn. I thought the Gorn was a great villain.
All right, well, we talked about the villains, so let's talk about the heroes, and let's talk about the big daddy of them all, and the number one Star Trek question that Trekkies and Trekkers alike share and discuss amongst themselves over and over again. Let's talk about this very controversial subject here at PCP. Who is your favorite Star Trek captain? Jelani?
My favorite Star Trek captain is Captain Picard. I had to stop because Kirk was action. Cisco is the emissary. They're just different portions, but Picard was the administrator. First of all, he was my first captain that I understood that he was out in space to do a job. Everybody else was out there for different reasons. Picard was out there to define space. And he feels like he needed to, I don't know how to explain it, but
He's a diplomat.
he was a diplomat, yes. He was worth your time and effort. Like, I would listen to Picard. If I was an alien race and I was, like, trying to learn from the Prime Directive, like, I just found out warp, I'd be like, the first person I want to talk to is Picard. Because Picard would be like, yes, this is what needs to be done.
Make it so.
So, make it show, number one.
That's a great answer, Jelani. Justin, what would you say?
My favorite captain, bar none, is Captain Benjamin Sisko.
Okay, why is that?
Well, Jelani just said that Picard's the administrator, but actually, Sisko's office is called the administrator's office because he's the administrator of the space station.
Yeah.
Sisko, though, is like out of all the captains, he's the one that has the most stratagem. Like when the Dominion War started, Starfleet actually picked him to plan the invasion of Cardassia.
Right.
Like he was the guy that had like the big table with the models on it and was moving around.
He was only
with the
picked
sticks and
because he had
stuff.
the big table. Nobody else had that big table.
I have the space station with the big table.
He had the room for it.
Yeah.
But
His war hobbying.
Yeah.
His
led to-
wargaming
yeah.
hobby led to a
It was
successful
bigger than
career.
yours. It was bigger than yours.
But I also love Picard and Kirk and Janeway, obviously. But I really also enjoy Archer as a captain, and I know nobody else is going to say this.
Nah, we don't.
Jonathan
No
Archer.
one else says that.
If any of us, if Starfleet was a thing right now, we would all be exactly like Jonathan Archer.
I do like that spin-off show. Archer
He was
is hilarious.
lost. Yeah.
He's
It's been a long road.
a true explorer.
I'm going to agree with you, Justin. I like Cisco.
Yeah.
And
No,
you
not
said
Archer.
You
Not
said
Archer.
a lot
Not
about
Archer.
yeah, no, not Archer.
Not Archer.
you said a lot about Cisco already, and to me it boils down to I was talking about Q. The first episode in DS9,
Yeah.
the Q's in, and all of a sudden, like he pops him and Cisco into this boxing ring,
Yeah.
and he's just sitting there and antagonizing Cisco, and Cisco just decks this guy, knocks him flat on his ass, and he looks up and he goes, "You hit me. Picard wouldn't hit me," and then Cisco just
This
goes,
is like,
I'm not Picard.
"That's why I love Benjamin Cisco."
Oh, yeah.
Skates off.
and by the way, just to throw this in here for Cisco hates Picard.
Yeah.
Oh, he did at the
begins
beginning.
At the beginning.
In the first,
He
Because his
yeah,
wife
yeah.
was
hates him because
killed.
his wife was killed because he was low cute as a Borg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, he grows to like befriend him, but it just that Cisco has this thing already, and it starts with his hatred for Picard. I love
It's
it.
such an interesting, and he starts as a commander. He actually gets promoted.
Right? He's promoted because of it.
Speaking of didn't like him at first, grew to tolerate him later on. Holshoe, I'm interested to know your favorite captain.
Jeez, thanks. I appreciate that. I still don't like you, Robbie.
I'm cool with that.
Oh, I'm gonna say I'm gonna go with Captain Ron.
Well done.
So,
He's the best kind.
Kirk, man, something about the old school original and closely by Picard. I mean, my
Kills
favorite.
so many people.
My favorite. I'm biased though. My favorite are the original show and Next Gen. So of course I'm gonna go with the classic, man. And there's something about Kirk. I remember seeing the pilot of the original episode. I'm like, that was big shoes for him to fill. You know what I'm saying? And I love Kirk, man. He's just so awesome. I like the way he talks. Everything I like about him. So I can't believe as I got older. I mean, I was introduced to him when he was doing was the cop show with him and
TJ Hooker?
TJ Hooker. That's like how I grew up with.
I remember him from Rescue 911.
Yeah. So.
oh god,
Oh yeah, I forgot about
I forgot
that.
about that.
So to see this younger, like, I mean, he was a handsome son of a bitch too, man.
Yeah.
But
is.
just the way he talks and his mannerisms and everything, you can't help but like the guy. And that was the first show. Something about being the original captain, even though he's not really the original, if you count Pike.
During this part of the podcast, can you put a picture of him up with that rock that looks like a
That was
penis?
like a penis.
That's
the
from
video.
the Gorn episode.
Wait.
Can
The
you show
picture
that?
of Kirk with the rock with the penis, or the
The one
picture
that
of
I
me
posted
with
on
the rock
Fa-
with the penis?
Both side
It's
by
a
side.
penis that looks like a rock.
Continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Talk about rock penises.
Did I mention that Voyager sucks?
We're actually, I think we're going to look at the old social media there. I think Robbie has some. We were talking about your favorite Star Trek movies. Robbie, I think you've got a couple
Robbie,
for
you
us.
did have to come to that.
Because Star Trek unites so many people. I mean, we had so many answers. I didn't realize there was all these Trekkers, Trekkies, Trekivorians, whatever.
Yeah, Trekvorian.
Trekilamidians?
All right. Josh Stark says Voyage Home. Nick Mastermiko says First Contact was best, followed by Star Trek 6, 2, and then the new ones. Star Trek 4 will always have a place in his heart as the funniest. Scott Green says Star Trek First Contact. Andrew Waite says Generations. Strictly because the Data oh shit scene. He loves that. I know. I went to high school.
Shit, yeah.
I went to high school with this guy. He loves that scene. Jeremy Day says the first reboot probably, so I'm assuming 2009 is what he's talking about. And Stephen Burgett, Undiscovered Country. A very Shakespearean
It's a good movie.
Christopher Plummer, you know.
Christopher Plummer is very Shakespearean.
That's a
in the movie.
fantastic villain.
It's good.
And one more real quick. Clem Urban says Wrath of Khan and then Voyage Home. So right, that seems like a lot of people are liking Voyage Home and First Contact.
Yeah, I'm surprised by the variety, though. I expected
I love it. Well,
Wrath of Khan or the new one to be the tops.
Oh, and Andrew Waite just popped in and said, however, the motion picture is a classic as well.
I agree.
Gross.
Yeah. I agree with
gross. I'm against it.
We appreciate everybody checking in on Facebook. Be sure to like us on Facebook. Find us on YouTube. Subscribe. Enjoy. Thank you guys for listening. We'll be right back with our top 5 favorite Star Trek films of all time on Pop Culture Philosophers, celebrating the 50th anniversary of Star Trek.
Next week, Rockin' with Rockin' Robbie returns with a 2016 Haunted Halloween Spooktacular Special. The 5th annual. 5 years. I can't believe he's made it this far. Watch, listen, die.
Hey everybody, Rockin' Robbie Billups here. Welcome back to Pop Culture Philosophers here, of course, with my host, John Hammertime Holshoe.
Glad to be here. I love this show.
Jelani Bullard.
Hi. What's
And
going on?
Justin Goldsmith. And
Hey.
Justin, tell us once again what we have here in our hands.
Romulan ale.
And we have been coerced, John, once again.
I tried to hide my cup from him, but it still has Romulan ale.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're
You're
doing the
welcome.
final segment of PCP Star Trek.
Drink it, fools. It's good.
I couldn't get all of it because there's a lot of ice in there. A lot of little tiny things of ice. All right, guys. We have been talking about Star Trek all night. Favorite captains and other crew members. A little bit about the history, our favorite episodes and TV series, favorite ships, villains. Fantastic show so far, guys. I really love Star Trek, and I love hanging out with you guys. Talking about Star Trek real quick. One of the most important things about Star Trek, I do believe, is the theme songs. There are a bunch of different theme songs. Some fun ones, some cool ones.
It's been a long road.
We're talking TV show themes right here, guys. So you got 4 to choose from. 5 to choose from. Yeah. What is your favorite Star Trek television theme song, Jelani?
And of course, it's Voyager.
Ooh, you don't really like the show, but you love the theme.
Cannot stand that show. But it's the best theme song. Now, I mean, number 2 is DS9, but
Which theme song? Don't they have more than one theme song?
a Voyager?
No,
They just have
Voyager's
one. I'm
No,
thinking of
Voyager only
Enterprise.
has
I'm
one.
thinking of Enterprise.
I mean,
I mean, they all change during the series at least
But-
once.
but Voyager like has the most consistent theme, even though
They do.
all that entire crew gets lost. But I'm excited for that theme song.
Voyager's
It's
theme
awesome.
actually comes from Jerry Goldsmith's score of Star Trek: The Motion
Jerry who?
Picture.
Which is
Jerry who?
Justin Goldsmith's dad, I
right.
believe.
So, a great uncle.
Oh man, we need to get him on the show.
It's awesome.
He's
It's
dead.
awesome.
He just died though.
He died.
Yeah, but Timothy Dalton's still alive, and he's actually going to be on the next episode. Speaking of Timothy Dalton, John, what's your favorite theme?
I would say "Faith of the Heart," the Enterprise song. I absolutely hate that
Enterprise.
song. I just want you to know that's not my favorite or anybody's favorite, and doesn't belong on the show. How out of place is that song? How terrible is that song?
It's
I'll
good,
say it's out of
man.
place as the theme, but if you look at that
I've
with
got
the video,
faith.
it's the history of human exploration.
I'm just going to tell you guys that Justin is a huge Enterprise fan and
Of
I
the
am.
heart,
He'll
yeah.
defend that terrible song.
an Enterprise apologist. Like for the entire time that I've known him, he has been trying to convince me that Enterprise is a good show.
Really sucks.
So
You haven't even seen the whole thing.
no, of course not.
It's garbage.
I could
Watch
barely
it.
make it through it, man. I don't.
Maybe
one
his
day.
next sleep will be the
Watch
leap
the show.
home.
Maybe next
God.
next hospital stay, you bring the DVDs and I'll take care of it. Anyway, Justin, John, you actually got a real one that you want to say? I'm sorry.
He forgot my name. I've been hosting the
Rod
show
Stewart
for a
not
while
be the
now,
pick.
and he forgot my name. I would say I like the because the orchestra of Next Gen.
Okay.
So I really like the
Which
Next
is
Gen.
also
opening
Next
Jerry
Gen.
song.
Goldsmith.
Yeah. And of course, I like the original because it's that, I don't know, it's that nostalgia. But honestly, I think the best song of the series, or all the series, in my opinion, would be Next Generation.
I personally always knew of the original series growing up, but TNG is really the first Star Trek that I watched, right?
Yeah.
And so the TNG, songs, which especially because it's Jerry Goldsmith, it's one of his themes from the motion picture. You know, the dun da 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 da. So then, to me, that was Star Trek. So like when the first time I actually watched an original series episode where I saw the opening, I was like, what is this? Like, what? It sounded so weird, and I expected everything to sound like TNG. And I didn't like DS9 at first, and I really liked DS9. TNG is my favorite. Jerry Goldsmith, we just did that movie night for The Omen, and he did the music in that. Jerry Goldsmith was a fantastic composer. Guys, seriously listen to his music.
The Waltons.
TNG is so great, dude. And I love the music in the motion picture.
Voyager be killing it.
And I just love that theme. I'm right there with you, John. Justin, do you got an answer that's not Enterprise?
All right, look, man. Thematic, like music-wise, Voyager is the best composition. Like as a standalone musical piece, Voyager is the best one.
I know.
TNG is Star Trek's theme.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Deep Space Nine is the most majestic, and it's probably my favorite.
DS9's great.
That's probably my favorite. It's just like the side views of the station. It's
and at first I thought
gorgeous.
It was boring.
Yeah.
I thought it was boring because I wanted that more fanfare-y thing. And dude,
yeah,
the
but then you realize what you're looking at on the screen at the time. There's this giant ass.
Well, that
space
definitely
station.
shouldn't be your influence. The song itself should stay on its own and not have to be the state. I mean, it's very epic to look at this space station, but at the same time, you're saying, hey, when you look at it, no. If you get rid of that, the song is kind of
the song is
you
a
also
beautiful
you have
it's not a bad song.
you have
it's just
visuals
not-
when you hear music. You have visuals in your head of what you imagine, and you can't imagine
Like if I
anything
got
except
lost
a
on road
giant.
trip
Not me. When I hear that song, I
Voyager.
think of two giraffes.
This is why I like that theme. Okay, in Next Gen, you got a starship that's going out, right? Out in this
the void.
this male energy. It's going out into the universe.
No,
Right?
it's coming towards the screen.
Yeah, and it's coming towards the screen. It's zooming by, so it's dun 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 dun, dun right? But DS9 is a stationary space station that's there, around this wormhole, and I just think the song fits.
Yeah,
I agree.
It's
I agree with that.
displaying this-
Yeah,
it's
it's more
displaying-
subtle and
it displays the centerpiece of the show as a museum piece, and it's just so gorgeous.
We're a boring
Remember-
show, so we have a boring song.
Oh, wow. We went to social media, and let's finish up this real quick. Some of our fans, what are your favorite Star Trek movies? Matt Gibson said, easily, First Contact. Corey Lewis said, Wrath of Khan, but I do like the new ones. Richard Trulson, who I know is a huge Star Trek guy because he is one of the top dogs at the Huntsville Starfleet guys. I'm sorry, the USS Werner von Braun.
Yeah.
He's one of the top dogs there, so I'm very interested to know what he has to say. He says, if I had to pick just one, I would say Wrath of Khan.
God.
Alan Foster says Wrath of Khan, no contest. Michael Bosserman said the one with the whales, but he spelled whales like the island of Wales. So I don't know. Matt
Isn't that the
Finley,
same way?
Matt Finley, who we call Pale, said the reboot and Into Darkness. Michael Finley, who we call Dark, said it's a tie between the reboot
Really?
and Undiscovered. Yeah, it's Dark Finley, Pale Finley, like beer.
I thought it was white Finley and black Finley. Okay.
We don't see black and white. We see pale and dark.
Sounds
Yeah,
That doesn't seem
Jelani.
any
Yeah.
better. We seem to feel like beers.
I'm
apparently.
racist.
Anyway, Finley, and we only have that distinction because Finley was
There's two
Finley
Finleys, yeah.
before the second Finley came.
Yeah.
Finley said it's a tie between the reboot and Undiscovered Country. And best answer of the night, guys. Nate Huddleston, a guy I work with. I asked him today while we were hanging out. I was like, "What's your favorite Star Trek movie?" And he goes, "Into Darkness."
Really?
And I went, "Out of every single Star Trek movie, you're going to tell me Into Darkness?"
Worst one?
And he goes, "Yes, yeah." And then he starts talking about, first of all, he's got a huge crush on Carl Urban.
Oh,
So there's
Good.
there's that.
He's a good McCoy.
And he said he really liked it. And then he started talking about the movie. And he was like, yeah, and all of a sudden Triple Blood cures everything and blah, blah, blah. And he starts talking about it. Then he goes, wait a second. Why do I like this movie? So that's the best answer we had. Thank you guys so much for checking in on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all the social medias.
mad respect to everybody that said Into Darkness.
Yeah.
Well, just one, but okay.
That is bold and daring.
Yeah, it is bold.
How about being
Just
bold?
like Star Trek
But
itself.
I definitely get that Wrath of Khan, First Contact, Undiscovered Country are considered the best ones. And then, of course, the reboot.
So we're gonna do our top 5 favorite Star Trek movies. If I'm incorrect, there's 562 Star Trek movies. So you got to narrow it down to your top 5. My
Boy,
math's
I
not so
wish.
good. We've all agreed. So your top 5. I actually want to start with Goldsmith, since he's the biggest Star Trek fan I know. Seriously, like hardcore. Don't you wear a Star Trek ring like every day?
Yeah, I bought it. I was going to wear it as a class ring as a joke, but now it's a pinky ring.
So he wears a Star Trek ring every day.
He lives his life.
So-
with
so if
Do
stars.
you
Yeah.
stand in front of the mirror with it and be like, you talking to me? You talk like that Joe Pesci skit in SNL from back in the day? Maybe that's too dated.
I do not
anyway,
do that.
90s kids forever.
So Goldsmith, I'd love to know your top 5.
My number 5 is Nemesis.
Oh, wow.
Nemesis. Star Trek Nemesis.
Wow.
Coming out of the gate crazy.
The origin story of Bane.
Cocaine.
Oh yeah, that's right. It is a
Tom Hardy.
young Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy.
I mean, it's so cool. It's the end
Baby
of an era.
face.
Like that.
it kills Data.
If you like Star Trek, you like Star Trek Nemesis. Number 4, thought about it a lot. I thought I might put this a little higher because it was just that good. Star Trek Beyond.
Beyond.
Well, number 4.
really-
I remember when it came out on Facebook. You said this is the best Star Trek movie I've ever seen.
Since that's not what I said. I said it was the best Star Trek movie since First Contact.
I don't remember.
That's
what you
why.
said.
That's why it's ahead of Nemesis on my
Yeah,
list.
but you did. I remember you being thrilled with it.
It was so good. I'm not going to go into it.
Okay.
Number 3 is The Voyage Home. It's
The one
of
where they go to the island of Wales.
the island. The Voyage Home is probably one of the most Star Trek movies. Because I mean, it's save the Earth,
Yeah.
and we can be better. We can do things better than we are
That's
now.
that's a good point.
It's
actually.
such a good movie. Number 2, Wrath of Khan.
Had to be on your list. I don't know how
it's
it could
gotta-
make somebody's
it's-
top 5.
I don't doubt that it's on you three
Yeah.
guys as well.
I bet I know you're number 1 then.
I'm sure you do. First Contact.
Yeah. If James Cromwell is in a Star Trek movie, it's got to be number 1.
Dude, it's so good. You remember how when I was defending Enterprise earlier, talking about how it's the origin of the Federation and how I'm so engrossed in the universe of Star Trek and how I like the background story? First Contact literally goes back even further than that, and it's the birth of the warp drive.
Yeah, and if you and James Cromwell, who creates the warp drive, is in the first episode of Enterprise as
Yeah.
a very, very old man,
Yeah.
sending them on.
And he's in their Mirror Universe episode, and he blows the Vulcan away with a shotgun. Spoilers.
All right, Jelani, I'm very curious as to your top 5. Would you please tell me 5 through 1?
Why not? I'll tell you. 5 is The Undiscovered Country, which has like one of the funniest scenes ever. Like Kirk is like sitting there and he's with the changeling Iman, and like Iman's about to tell him the entire story or why they're being screwed over in this movie, and he gets teleported back to the Enterprise. And he's like, "She's about to tell me the whole thing. She's going to tell me the whole thing." And I love that part of the movie. 4 is the reboot of Star Trek. The reboot of Star Trek works for me.
2009.
Yes, 2009 Star
The
Trek.
genre change.
I love it. Love it.
It was nice.
Like I watched it more than I watch most things. It brings the original Star Trek series and the new version of what changes into it together. Number 3. Wow, I'm going to say number 3 is Search for Spock.
Ooh.
Search for
Wow.
Spock.
Most people don't rank that very high.
An odd number Star Trek movie.
I love Search for Spock.
Christopher
Search for
Lloyd.
Spock. Search for Spock, by the way, is the first introduction for me into the Star Trek universe.
Christopher Lloyd
I
wasn't in that
watched
movie.
as a movie.
Christopher Lloyd is in Search
Christopher
for Spock.
Lloyd is the Klingon captain.
Yeah.
in
He's the
that
captain
movie.
of the Klingons that are
He's
on
the
the
captain of
Genesis
Klingon.
planet.
You're right.
Yep.
Yeah, he is.
Yep.
And he's
And
trying
by
to
the
kill
way-
that
by the way-
rabbit.
Thinking he was in.
I learned Klingon. I learned Klingon from that movie. It was like malts, choo choo.
Now, is that the
He
one
was
with
like-
his Spock's
it
brother, or
was-
am I confusing that with a different
That's
film?
that's
Like,
Final Frontier.
If
That's
I
Final
need
Frontier,
to,
okay.
if I need to beam up, I just say malts choo choo. That's all we gotta do. Number 2 is First Contact. First Contact for me, only reason I say it's number 2 is because, well, it's Picard. Basically, Picard turned to Borg in the original series, and it's him coming to terms with being a Borg captain. Like being a Borg and killing a lot of people, including Sisko's wife. But a lot of things happened, and he had to deal with them. And the shadow of being that thing made the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
What's your number 1?
Number 1, of course, is
I knew it was going to make somebody's number 1.
Of course, it's
Wait, which
Khan.
one?
Yeah, I was going to say.
I'm sorry,
Wrath
Not
of
in the Darkness.
Okay.
So maybe his wrath. It has like it's an epic feel.
Robbie, I would love to know your top 5. You're one of the bigger Star Trek fans I know. I'd love to hear your top 5.
Well, let me finish this Romulan ale shot because the ice melted real quick.
Hey.
It's pretty good.
I would like listeners to know that I stopped drinking the Romulan ale because it's like drinking like gasoline. It really is.
Blue gas.
Speaking of gasoline, my top 5 will burn an engine out and have it just going full speed down the highway with the top
What the hell are
down
you talking about?
on a Friday
I
night.
have no idea.
We'll just call
It's
this
been a
one
long
part of the
road,
show.
Robbie.
Getting from there to here.
Number 5, 1986's The Voyage Home.
Oh, I love that movie.
Not necessarily the best Star Trek movie. I almost said Star Wars.
They're whales.
It's
man.
not
good.
necessarily the best
Oh.
one, but it is the funniest. Number 4, the reboot from 2009, Star Trek, J.J. Abrams. Fun, reinvigorated the franchise. Number 3, Wrath of Khan. It's a great movie. It's fantastic. It's fun. It's good. It's intriguing. It's a hoot. Number 2, Star Trek, the motion picture.
Really? Really?
I love that
I'm
movie.
really
Classic.
glad that you had that on
Feature?
your list.
I
From
hate you.
1979.
No.
Robert Wise directed
It was
it.
terrible.
Do you
No.
understand how beautiful
Do
that
you
movie
understand
is?
Gene Roddenberry couldn't do anything until that movie was over?
Number 1, 1996's
your number
classic
1?
First Contact.
So First Contact, like Goldsmith, is rated your number 1. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Why is that your number 1? What makes that stand out in your opinion?
I think it's the best executed Star Trek film. I think it's first of all, I have more of an affinity and a closeness and connection to the TNG crew than I do the original series crew. That's just something because of my age and TNG was my first Star
And
Trek.
I think it's because the original series is more episodic.
Yeah. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the real reason, it's a cool time travel story. It harkens back to the early days of the
It
Federation.
does.
But the number one reason is the Borg.
Yeah.
It's the Borg.
Dude, the Borg is badass.
The Borg is so awesome, and you finally meet the Queen in that movie, and it was so cool. The first CG Star Trek ship, the E looks
Voyager.
fantastic.
E looks fantastic.
It's my
a great
favorite
ship.
because of that. But I do think
And you got the cameo by the doctor.
Yes,
the,
the
EMA,
doctor
the
is
emergency
in there,
medical
yes.
hologram.
The line must be drawn.
Telling the
Yeah.
Borg that they need a
No
mild
further.
analgesic cream.
it's really cool, and that's why it's my number one though. Is the connection
Contact
to
is
TNG?
awesome.
It's Picard. It's Data. It's all that. And Generations was such a disappointment.
Yeah.
That first Contact just
Yeah.
blew it all away.
Yeah, Generations. I would say disappointing to
terrible.
most people, especially the death
Terrible.
of Kirk, was just not done in
Why
a
did you
very
kill
epic
Kirk?
way.
Spoilers.
And a bridge.
Yeah, say take that spoiler alerts. But
He's dead.
little known fact that the Queen for First Contact originally Timothy Dalton, and they for filming so, they had to cut him out. The motion picture made your top 5. When a lot of
Yes, it
people
did.
are say, "Hey, this is an artsy film, but not a good film," why'd that make
It's
your
garbage.
top 5? Because I actually love that film.
Motion picture made my list because I think it is an absolutely brilliant, beautiful film, and the only film out of all of the Star Trek films that is actually close to the original vision of Gene Roddenberry. It is not based on a conflict. It's based on a mystery that is a result of their exploration. And I know a lot of people think it's cheesy. I love the idea that it's Voyager.
Yeah.
One of the Voyagers that's like
The
evolved.
Voyager
Yeah,
probe.
I love it. It is so, dude. And the early on the transporter scene when that dude gets like they get killed in the transporter, dude. That terrified me. So it's dangerous. It's so it is exactly what Roddenberry envisioned Star Trek to be. John,
Number 5 is going to be Galaxy Quest.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah.
Good movie. Good Star Trek.
Actually, that is a good like a love. That's a comedy like love letter to the Star Trek universe, honestly. But really, my number 5 is gonna be Wrath of Khan. I mean, how can you have a top 5 without having Wrath of Khan on your list? A lot of people I thought would be higher. Love Wrath of Khan. My number 4 is going to be the original Star Trek motion picture. I do think it's a beautiful picture. It's nice to see the cast reunited because the show honestly should have gone on for more than three seasons, in my opinion. And I think anybody else would agree, especially Star Trek fans. That was cut short.
Well,
Even
season
though-
3 was pretty rough.
Yeah, well, in addition to that, there was a lot of episodes per season. Like a lot of shows, you don't have that many episodes. Look how good some of those, especially season 1 and 2, and they still did a lot of episodes, a lot of great concepts and ideas, and they got all those episodes out. It's mind-boggling.
It was 3 seasons, but it's 70-something episodes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's mind-boggling. My number 3 is going to be Beyond. Of course, a lot of that's that I just recently saw it, but I do really. Well, first, initially, when I watched the reboot, I'm like, why did they cast these people? I don't feel it. Like these aren't good replacements. They've come into their own, and I think that Chris Pine does remind me of Kirk. What's his?
Shatner?
Shatner, William Shatner. And
Such a good.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I feel a lot from Spock. I can't remember the actor's name. I know he's from Heroes.
Quinto?
Yeah.
Zachary Quinto.
Yeah, Zachary Quinto. And again, a lot of people draw heavily from them, and I think it works well. I enjoyed Beyond a lot, so that's my number 3. My number 2 is the Star Trek reboot, the first reboot. I do think it's more of an action film than a. It kind of deviates from the original Star Trek, which is, hey, we're a drama and we're more a thinking man's game. They went more of an action-oriented film, and I think you're gonna get divisive. You know, there's people like, oh, I hate the reboot, or I love the reboot. I think in doing so, they brought in a lot of new fans in, which I think is great, and I enjoyed the film. And my first is my favorite would probably be you guys agree with me, Star Trek: First Contact.
Ooh, yeah, okay.
So I think there was a lot of First Contact fans here. I thought maybe I would be the only one. I don't know how many Next Gen fans are there, but I love First Contact.
Well, if you look
the
at
damn
this,
Borg.
we all picked Star Trek First Contact as number 1, except for Jelani, who went number 2.
Yeah, but it's everybody's top 5.
Respect.
Yeah.
Absolutely, mad respect. It's a great movie. So, John, I just want to elaborate real quick here. You put Wrath of Khan at number 5. Everybody here has Wrath of Khan on their list, some higher than others. You have it at number 5. Why is that?
I think the original motion picture is just more, I don't know, there's something about watching it, and it was seeing that cast reunite that like stirs something in you. And then, of course, the other one's a reboot, Next Gen. I'm Next Gen biased. I love the original show. I love Khan. I think he's a great villain. But for some reason I never understood why it was everybody's favorite movie. But it's definitely one of the best. It's just not my top 5. But I still think it's a great film.
Yeah, Khan is good. The problem with a lot of the Star Trek movies is that they're so based around conflict. In fact, like Roddenberry didn't like them.
Yeah.
And especially Undiscovered Country really offended him because it paints the Federation, and Kirk in particular, as racist.
Yeah, hating Klingons.
Yeah, they're hating, and like the Federation's not supposed to be like that. Like Roddenberry developed
conflict.
Star Trek around a lot of the ideas from the counterculture.
Right.
He wanted it to be a progressive show. He wanted a diverse cast. He wanted. I mean, it was the first show with an interracial kiss. That was done purposefully.
That was a big deal, yeah.
That was done
Oh
purposefully.
my God.
John, that's a fantastic top 5. I'm so proud of you for putting motion picture in there.
Yeah.
Robert Wise directed that, guys.
I'm not.
The guy that did West Side Story. It's been a fantastic show. I appreciate you all for being here. I appreciate all the listeners for tuning in, if you tune in to an internet show. Anyway, thank you guys so much. This has been so fun. So let's wrap up. We started this whole thing with a very simple question that John gave us. Why do you love Star Trek? I want to flip that around and be like, why do we need Star Trek? Jelani, final thought.
God, we need Star Trek. Really, we do. It's the best thing about human culture. Like we need this thing because all of us together can work together for the stars, for humanity, to be just one with each other.
Well put, Jelani. Thank you for being on the show. Justin, I appreciate you as well. Huge Star Trek fan. You're my Trekker buddy. You know, me and you, we nerd out on Star Trek all the time. So I'm curious, your final thought, why do we need Star Trek?
Well, I'll go ahead and say that Star Trek is one of the things that has shaped my life since I was a child.
When you were a small Klingon child.
You're weak. Kapla.
But, I mean, seriously, one of the things that we as a culture can take away from Star Trek is no matter what happens to you or your neighbor or everybody or no matter how bad or dark things look, things can and will be better. Everything's gonna be okay.
Well said, and thank you for being on the show. Guys, pay attention. Next week, Rockin' with Rockin' Robbie returns for the 5th annual Haunted Halloween Super Spooktacular Special. 5th annual, John. Can you believe that?
It feels like only yesteryear.
And also tune into the next episode of Pop Culture Philosophers, where we will be talking about Disney films.
I'm excited.
Disney. I appreciate you guys listening. Star Trek, why do we need it? First of all, technology. Look at how much technology and genius that has happened because of people that were into Star Trek that wanted to make that real.
It inspires for
Cell
sure.
phones,
Yeah,
We got phones.
tablets,
exactly.
Yeah.
We got cool stuff.
Number 2,
latex.
this is
I really
the
want the phasers.
this is the only world that we have. So we need to learn, first of all, to protect it, and then we got to go find another one. Right?
That's true.
Like, seriously.
We need to find
We
a Risa.
need to explore.
Yeah.
Just like the famous explorers of the ancient days, the Magellans, the Balboas, fuck Columbus, but the other ones, you know what I'm saying? Like, I get
From there.
I get what you
here.
say about that.
Yeah.
The only way we're going to do that is if we learn, like Jelani said, to work together. That's what Star Trek's about. That's why we need Star Trek, because Star Trek teaches us that our future is going to be bright if we work together.
I'm going to say, first off, I heard the first interracial kiss is supposed to be between Spock and Tribble. Just for the record. That's what I read, and they cut that out. It's a long make-out session, and it's really wet. It's just a lot of tongue. They say
It works out.
They say tribbles don't have. They say tribbles don't have mouths, but I beg to differ.
I've got faith in
I'm
the
done
heart
with
for
this
that.
show.
I forgot one more thing I wanted to say. Drew Mattson,
Oh yeah.
Star Trek, hater sometimes, right?
Oh my God.
I just got one. My final thought, actually, all that inspirational shit we've been saying. Drew, fuck you.
Fuck you, Drew.
Fuck
Oh.
you, Drew.
First off,
John,
I love you,
say
Drew.
fuck you,
Thanks,
Drew.
thanks for listening to the show. My final thought was, yeah, it does. It unifies people. I think together we can accomplish a lot more than fighting. And this whole idea of coming together and exploring the universe, there's so much out there. There literally is so much out there. There could be other race, alien life. There could be, God only knows.
We don't know.
What's out there beyond. It's crazy. I love the concept. I love the movies. I love the show. I love the fact that Gene Roddenberry could have taken the traditional sci-fi Lost in Space, kind of style, and went with he didn't. He went with the moral dilemma and so much more, and it built this empire that I absolutely love. I enjoy the show. I enjoy the Star Trek community and the fans, Trekkies, Trekkers, whatever you want to call them. If you embrace the show, even to like you live the
We're
show and breathe the
Trekkers.
show, I still love you. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I love Star Trek, and if that inspires you, awesome. And it should inspire people. The universe. Let's go out there and explore. Let's explore. I hope more money is allocated to NASA because I think there's a lot more available to us
Yes.
in this world. And beyond
I agree
this
with
world,
that.
I should say. There's so much more. So Jupiter's just the beginning. I want to see what's beyond Pluto. I want to see what's on beyond the Milky Way. And I think Star Trek is it's just almost the flame that kind of like ignites that. So I'm very excited. And I love Star Trek. And I appreciate everybody tuning in and subscribing. You can subscribe with Android and through, iTunes.
And the website.
And we're on the website, www.popculturephilosophers.com, and on YouTube. Next episode, we're going to be talking about Disney, all things Disney, from the inception of Disney to the animated films to my favorite sci-fi film, which is Tron. So tune in next time. We're very excited. We appreciate you guys tuning in.
And be sure to listen to the Halloween special, Rockin' with Rockin' Robbie, coming back. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Well, the 5th annual, correct?
Yeah.
I'm excited. I love Halloween. I'm excited for the episode. It's, got like a side episode that you kind of do from PCP, but I love Halloween. I love to talk about Halloween. I'm very excited for the show.
And remember, our mission is to boldly go where no one has gone before.
I've got faith of the heart. Nothing's gonna bend or break me.
Damn, Justin, shut that shit up.